All right, bows and bow ties. So I am sitting in a parking lot because this is the only place that I have decent Wi-Fi. It's not a parking lot where one of my children is practicing, but I couldn't get good Wi-Fi where I was. Let me lock my doors, while I'm giving my. So I wanted to lock my doors while I'm sitting here talking because you never know. I don't want anybody to open up my door. Not that they would. I'm in a relatively safe area, but there's some wackadoodles out here. But anyway, so I'm sitting in a random parking lot because I have some better Wi-Fi for my phone. But yeah, I ran into this term. When did I write this up? A while ago. This was back in January. I have my handy dandy notebook. I was sitting there doodling some notes, and I ran across this term called doom scrolling. And I wrote down the notes. Sorry, yeah, this is back early January. Goodness. And it basically says is when you continuously scroll through social media or the news, consuming a steady stream of negative content. Okay. So it leads to anxiety, stress, and some other things like that. A sense of like it's like a sense of being overwhelmed. So what I wanted to do was just talk about like just general, the overall toll on, I, I don't know if I want to call it mental health or self esteem or what. So let me just get on into it. I wrote a few things down. I want to start off with when you are constantly consuming social media content, let me tell you, it can make you feel anxious. And it's not just like, I think, social media, it could be anything, even the news. So, like, it made me think of like during the pandemic when I was constantly consuming information on the jab, whatever else. I think a lot of people now are consuming a lot of negative information on how men are feeling, how women are feeling, etc. Right? And so what happens is I just felt like when I was consuming all of this negative information, whether it was on a lot of stuff about the weather, it could be about anything, it could be about the wars that are going on, it could be about health, whatever it was. I constantly felt anxious. I remember True tea. I remember during the pandemic, I was so like, oh, about what was happening. And they were constantly reporting like how people were checking up out of here. And I remember one time, I can't even make this up. I shouldn't even be talking about this out loud, but this is full disclosure. I somehow convinced myself that I had, you know, the pandemic cootie. You know what I'm talking about. And when I thought, I mean, I don't know, it happened in a span of like about 20, 30 minutes. I was like, I had a headache. I thought I was getting sick or something. And I came downstairs wrapped up in this heavy blanket. I went all the way to the basement to my husband. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to check up out of here. I mean, full on panic. I was like, I think I got the so and so, and I'm not going to be here for my kids and all this stuff. And my husband looked at me and was like, well, if you got the cooties, take yourself upstairs because see, right now I'm trying to watch. I don't know what he was watching on TV, a movie or something, and he was like, "You don't have the so and so, and I don't know why you're going crazy." He didn't use those words, but I'm keeping this PG because this. I mean, he doesn't really curse though. Actually, he rarely curses, but he basically was like, "Crazy lady." Well, if you think you have the cooties, then get away from me and take yourself upstairs. But I literally became so anxious because it's all I would hear all the time. And I got to the point where I somehow convinced myself I was unwell. Full on tears. I was like, like full on panic attack. And he's looking at me like, we're not doing this. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Within the span of about 20 minutes or so, I was able to calm down. All my symptoms went away. Like, that was my first time actually convincing myself that I had the pandemic cootie. And what I'm saying is all the scrolling that we're doing on social media is the doom scrolling. It's so negative. At least the stuff that shows up in my feed half the time, like the things that are showing up in my feed right now, the housing market is so and so, rental market is so and so. Of course, all the stuff I've been talking about recently, right? Like Women are choosing to be single by choice. The 4B movement, the this movement, the that movement. Men don't want these modern women and get your passports. You've got women making videos on, you know, so many things. Why am I the ugly friend? And all this stuff. Well, those are real issues that people deal with. But what happens is there was so much negative stuff showing up in my feed. I was like, I was feeling like there's no hope. Like, I'm just like, goodness. Anyway, this doom scrolling thing, I think, is leading to a lot of anxiety. It's leading to a lot of things. So I'm going to move to the next point. I think, honestly, it's making me emotionally exhausted looking at so many people have so many problems. I mean, we all have problems, right? But it is exhausting looking at, because most people use like social media as, in my opinion, an unhealthy form of therapy. Because this is the thing: when you are venting about whatever it is, and then you put it out there in the ethos, right? What happens is that becomes part of some algorithm. And so you're going to get more information on whatever it is that you talked about or that you searched on. And all that is once you do one of these searches, or if there's somebody that you follows certain content and it ends up in your your feed, it's almost like anything that you say or search on, you are automatically confirming your own bias. And it can be exhausting because you're going to keep getting fed the same type of information. So when I have been doing my videos and I talk about how I try to cleanse my timeline, I'm serious about that. I Let me tell you, I literally make sure I look up things on like these, I'm like into all the like the cubs and the lions and stuff like that in Africa. Um, some of the stuff is arts and crafts. I have my other channel where I talk about travel. You go check it out, Bo Travels, B.O.W. Travels. I like to look up all kinds of things that are different, just so that I can get some other things in my timeline. Um, I just like, between the constant, like the housing market, the job market, the dating market, the no children, the like the women and the men are fighting and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking like Satan is having a great time, because we've got men and women out here going off on each other. It is exhausting. So I like to cleanse my timeline as much as I can so that I can get other things recommended to me, so that I'm not constantly seeing a bunch of psycho dudes with beards that don't look very clean, and these psycho women out here trying to convince the world that I'm good because I'm single by choice. I'm like, you protest too much. Anyway, it's emotionally exhausting because basically when you are doom scrolling and you're selecting all of these videos over and over and over, you're just reconfirming all of your biases. So it's going to continue to recommend the same stuff. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about the helplessness, or what I would even say learned helplessness. I feel like when you constantly doom scroll and you're feeding this negative beast, that algorithm, I can't talk. When you're feeding that algorithm, I feel like you get to the point where it's like there's nothing you can do. It's just like a level of hopelessness. You know, um, One of the words I'm hearing recently, I even wrote it down because I was like, what exactly does it mean? And I wrote it down. What was it? Hold on. Go back to my handwritten notebook. Nihilism, the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. Nihilism. Nihilism. So I've heard this term frequently. And I was sitting there thinking, like, I can see how people can get to this space, because people start to challenge, their mores and their belief in God and their belief in human, not as humanity as a deity, but, hopefully, like, good tenants. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, by doom scrolling, I kid you not, I feel like puts you in a space of helplessness because you feel like there's no use. There's nothing I can do. Everybody is going through it. I mean, you've got women talking about a worldwide movement because like the population is decreasing. A lot of times they're saying it's because it's men, but it's not just men. It's economics. It's education. Women are more educated, whatever. But I feel like when we're doing this whole doom scrolling thing that we're doing, um, what happens is it creates this sense of learned helplessness. And then I think people become more nihilistic. Anyway, so I actually just recently learned what that was. I was like, what is nihilism? So for those of you who are like super smarty pants, kudos to you. I did not know what nihilism was. Let's move on. Self-esteem. And this is more like for my women that look like me. I think there has been a huge hit to their self-esteem. And so what I applaud is when the women who look like me are trying to, I feel like I'm going to contradict myself. Let me say this. Let me schedule this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I just got like a message come in. So I just said that I feel like when you doom scroll, right, like it's like a sense of learned helplessness. Like there's no hope and everything like that. But now I'm going to say this. I feel like with the women who look like me, I feel like they were trying, right? Over the last, I'm just going to say 5 years or so, there's been several movements, some that conflicted with each other, some, so on the one hand, you've got divest, decenter, and 4B. On the other hand, it was femininity, coaching, soft life, that type of thing. And so I think women were trying to find that thing, right? Like, what is it? What's going to help me? So I think for those who wanted a life, like a long life, long-term partner, maybe they were more focused on their femininity. Maybe if they were looking to reduce their stress, they were more concerned about living the soft life. But I think it was also kind of like in conjunction with femininity or femininity coaching. I just feel like what happened was in the process of all of this, I feel like some of these women are now just like checking out in terms of like, I don't want anything. I just want to be left alone. That's what they're saying. It's like we are like you hear a lot of people, like I think I saw on TikTok, there was this trend about like where are all the women? They're like, we're inside, we just want to be left alone. We're not coming outside. Like I think women who look like me are now becoming so much more insular. I feel like the self-esteem is being taken a hit because like you got, like I said, people were talking about femininity and beauty tips and stuff like that. And now they're just like, I don't care. I'm just gonna show up on screen in a bonnet. you know, you've got women going through discourse, having public discourse about colorism, but there's no real like, what are you looking for, right? You're really angry at the men and how they're choosing, but then it becomes this fight between other women. And I get it, but I'm like, but you're not really mad at women. Well, maybe they are, right? Because sometimes women do uphold some of these colorist principles, right? I think I said in another video, maybe several videos, a long, long, long way back, like, in the beginning, once I became conscious of like colorism and these types of things, I didn't do anything. I didn't change anything. But I wasn't equipped. I was in my 20s, right? I wasn't equipped. I didn't at the time I didn't know how to name it. I just, but then as I got older, I found that I would get into, I don't want to call them arguments, but I would get into debates with men over brown skinned women. And even though I had no true dog in the fight, but in a way I did because I'm still a woman, I'm still a black woman, right? And I would challenge and question them on like, well, why would you treat them like this? Why would you say this about brown skinned women and you have a brown skinned daughter? Like the psychoness of it all. I'm like, anyway, we would have these discussions and debates. I think the point where I'm going is all this doom scrolling. I remember there was a period of time when people were in their femininity phase and their soft life phase, and they talk like this, and they all had the same, um, like wig and weave, and they all had the same makeup, and they continued to talk like this and talk about their living in their soft life, and then they would always have the same like aesthetic for their apartment or their house. Like, you see how annoying it is to talk like this? Look, I don't think I come up as a man, but I definitely have a strong voice, right? I would see women because they did not fit that aesthetic. It was like the femininity movement wasn't for them. Like, it was like a whole movement. Like, they weren't included because they didn't fit the brand of social media femininity. And I think women were taking a hit. Women started taking a hit. So you got women who were frustrated with all these weirdo beauty standards, et cetera, et cetera. And it was so funny because I was watching women do everything they could to arrest their edges, and I never, well, I won't say never. I rarely do anything to arrest my edges. It is what it is. This is how my hair goes up. Well, not the braids, but you guys have seen me with the afro, the twist outs, the the braids, the straight hair. You guys have seen me with wear it all. But like, I generally don't spend a whole lot of time arresting my edges. That's just how they are. The point where I'm going with this is, by everybody doom scrolling, I especially like women who look like me, I felt like they were feeding, it was like becoming this self-fulfilling like prophecy that everybody's going to think that you're unattractive, because then everybody was putting out the same content, and they kept hearing like I guess there was the he who shall not be named, that guy that passed away, that people, he belonged in the manosphere. He was famous for saying that somebody was average at best, and people went all out on, like, I can't believe they would say she's at, the whole big thing. And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm seeing a whole bunch of women and men, but like women and men who look like me getting out here on the internet. I'm seeing, like, on, I think it's TikTok, people are doing this whole pop in the balloon thing. Like, somebody will come out, and then there'll be some like, there'll be a contestant come out, and there'll be, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 men or women, whatever, and then they pop it based off of what they see coming out, like crazy content. Like, I just didn't find you attractive, or it's like crazy stuff. Anyway, you do all this doom scrolling over and over, and it reminds you what it is. It's continuously scrolling through social media or news, consuming a steady stream of negative content, leading to anxiety, stress, and a sense of being overwhelmed by the constant influx of negative information. So I feel like that was what was going on. We got to stop all this doom scrolling. I did not realize when I put out those videos years ago. I hope I didn't delete those, because I started cleaning up my account every once in a while because I have so much old content on there. I used to tell people, like, get off these podcasts and stuff like that, because they were constantly getting on these podcasts, allowing dudes who were completely like stupid and could not like express themselves intelligently, berate them. It was like beration porn. These guys would get off on that, and I think secretly the women got off on being humiliated. It was really weird. But let me move on. Oh yeah. Black women were constantly being told how they are ugly, undateable, unfeminine, etc. Oh, before I move on, yeah, I just wanted to. I remember I was watching. No, I was listening. What was it? Somebody was mentioning, like, oh, black women don't have any options. I'm sitting there thinking, like, apparently you have no idea what happens in the real world. And then they got black women believing it. Let's move on. So back to the doom scrolling. I think what happens is, which this is really, I think, linked to number one. I think it was leading to a whole bunch of difficulties in how you were getting your rest, because you're constantly being like stressed out, which I think also leads to anxiety. I think people just like were just constantly feeding. Huh? What's all that? Blah blah blah. Okay, they were constantly feeding all of this stuff into their like soul, and then what happens is it's like you're constantly replaying that stuff what just happened? Oh, so you're constantly replaying back all these scenarios and conversations about how you are unworthy. And like it was just a really psycho. It is still psycho. It is psycho. Anyway, I think it led to a disruption in my sleep pattern for sure. But mine was more along the lines of like, oh my goodness, the world is falling apart. Everybody's getting sick and they're dying. I'm like, what is going on with the weather? Like anytime I see something tragic happens, like, a week or so ago, one of the Baltimore bridges came crashing down. You've got weather issues happening everywhere. Even the really cool solar eclipse phenomena that happened just the other day is still like an event. Like, well, actually, I was really excited for that. But the point I'm making was, I mean, I'm constantly putting certain things, you're consuming all of this negative content, then I think it leads to things that are very psychological. I think you start to experience like helplessness, anxiety, low self esteem. You can become exhausted, emotionally exhausted. I listed all the things earlier. I think it definitely has started leading to a very nihilistic society. I'm so glad I actually looked up that word, nihilism. You're seeing it happen now. I will say, because moving on to the next point, because of all that doom scrolling, especially during the pandemic time, I think I was starting to become with each passing time, I had all this level of anxiousness, but then I started to expect so much negative stuff that I was slowly becoming desensitized, in terms of like, I couldn't, let me rephrase it. I felt like my empathy started to change a little bit for the situation, right? Like, I would see people out on the internet. I would see people who look like me, women who look like me, and I could tell they were frustrated. And I was starting to feel so helpless. And I'm just kind of like, stop getting on these podcasts. Stop listening to people, like as if it was just that easy, right? You're trying to tell people to change the very habits that they have already created. So trying to tell people to stop doom scrolling became frustrating. I didn't know that was a term, but I think I just became desensitized too, because I felt like I couldn't help in any way, right? I couldn't get people to understand their value, their beauty, or just understand, like, get off of these things so you can try to appreciate something else, hear a different voice, right? Like, I was feeling like I'm tired of hearing you complain about this. I felt like I was losing my empathy for people. And so then, once you start realizing that you're getting into that space, I kind of felt like, wait a second, I don't want to be in a place where I don't have any empathy. I don't want to be in a place where I don't have, or I extend any grace towards anyone. I just, I don't know. I think even like right now, when I listen to some of these hyper feminists want to like, I don't know what they think they're proving at this point. I don't know what they think they're proving by trying to tear down all these other women. So they have a clear hatred for men. I mean, like, we literally have come to a society where the men and the women just don't even like each other. And then we got these hyper feminists who are literally, I just feel like they're tearing down other women. If a woman is already broken, why would you kick somebody when they're down? You understand what I'm saying? Like why would you kick somebody when they're already down, they're already in a bad place? And maybe they played a hand, or maybe not, I don't know, but maybe they played a hand in their own downfall. But these hyper feminist women are like, if you don't believe exactly what we're saying to the T, you're a pick me, or all these things are wrong with you, and like you can't be part of the womanhood. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, so these women can't be protected by men, and they can't seek, collective protection or support from the women. Anyway, the point I'm making was I got to the point where I was feeling no empathy and a lack of grace, but it was only for a short period of time. And I was like, no, this is not how you want to be. And I think it's because you're constantly consuming all this negative content to the point that it becomes boilerplate. It becomes like standard. It becomes like regular. Okay. Okay. Let me see. Last thing, I just think that, which I already talked on, we just have like this negative outlook on everything now. I think the thing was circling back to the 4B movement. I think the thing that is so sad about it is this is a very nuanced and layered argument, right? It's not an argument. It's just there are women who are they're treating the population decline like it's some sort of badge of honor. If you're saying I'm sad that the population is declining, but I can't do this now because I'm trying to make myself healthy, that's one thing. They're more along the lines of don't talk to men, don't date them, don't marry them, don't have their kids, don't have sex with them. Like we want nothing to do with them. And if we have to exterminate our own existence, like there's a level of sickness here. There's a sickness here. The men are just a psycho. They don't like women. The way they talk about them, I'm just kind of like, all of these extreme people, because they don't see that they have a blind spot, right? I say put all the angry women and the whacked out weirdo manosphere dudes, put them on an island together and let them work it out. I said what I said. Because what happens is you have women who are out here with this negative outlook. I'm like, don't worry about what the men are doing. Worry about fixing and healing yourself. Centering yourself or healing yourself doesn't necessarily mean you have to be done with men. It just means the focus should shift to you for some period of time where you get to explore your wants, where you get to figure out how to make yourself less anxious, where you get to, work on your spirituality and maybe increase your education in some particular area that is needed, where maybe you become financially healthy, where maybe you understand where real joy comes from. And like I've said in multiple videos now, when I listen to them talk, it's so negative, and the only thing they seem to be happy about is the fact that they're making more money and they can engage in certain activities. And what happens if you are unwell and you can't engage and you can't go to these places or whatever like that, and you start to run through your money? Then what happens? Where does the joy come in? Where, when you're saying to yourself, where's the real mental health coming in? Where does that come in? What if you get to the point where, you're relatively healthy, but you can't travel and do certain activities anymore? What does that mean? You know, I just feel like the outlook on everything due to all this doom scrolling now. You got all these women who are out here. Yeah, yeah, they're like bigging up this 4B movement. There's a level of sickness here. And they're like, and you don't understand, and they're aggressive about it. They're aggressive. And I'm like, if you have to be that aggressive, I'm like, I don't need to hear from you. You don't have to convince me. You need to convince yourself. You need to have a whole argument with yourself. Anyway, I just feel like the doom scrolling is putting us in this really negative place, and we're creating a whole bunch of our problems. When we're doom scrolling, we are automatically engaging in this confirmation bias. We are engaging in it because we're constantly feeding the algorithm to feed us the same information over and over and over again. And it's weird. It is really weird. Like, I am sitting here listening to these people and they think they're doing something. Now, you have some outliers, right? You have some edge cases where they are like, look, I want to decenter men because that's the new thing, that and 4B. Like, if you're saying, hey, I need a timeout because maybe I'm out of balance right now. I don't hate the men, but then you got the ones who are like, you know what? The men are all this, that, and the other. If you listen to what they're saying, listen. Everything they're saying is in relationship to men. Instead of just saying what it is they want, they're telling you what they don't want. Instead of what they want, they're telling you what they don't like. Instead of telling you what they want, they can't say anything without speaking negatively about something else. I said what I said. And I don't know. excuse me, I don't know who they're trying to convince. I don't know how long this is going to work. Now, will there be some success? Of course. Being proud of a reduction in population, I don't know if that's something you want to hang your hat on. You hang your hat on things like, you know what, I've gotten to the place where I found real joy, whatever, right? I think, don't get me wrong. I understand not wanting to allow a man to continue on with his bloodline through you. I get that. As far as like, look, I don't think we're a good match. I don't think that I want to be tethered to you in terms of, raising a child for any extended period of time. I just don't think that I'm the match for you. Like, I get all of that. But to laud and applaud, like, yeah, we're reducing the population. I'm like, that's your end game. Like, I don't understand what happens in the 4B movement, or this decentering. What is your end game? What are you looking to accomplish? I don't understand what the end goal is. How do you know you arrived? Is it measurable? What does this mean? How do I know that you have succeeded in doing these things? Then what are you trying to achieve? Anyway, that's just where I'm at with it, with all this doom scrolling and the things that it's, I think, contributing to. And I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully you enjoyed this. This is where you go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because I'm amazing in every way and could do no wrong. And go ahead and leave a comment. That's about it. You don't need to get off of these podcasts. So except for mine, go look at all my videos.